Memorial Day weekend. But we're talking some Autodesk here. This is one that's having a strong morning here, up $5.60. Stock ticker ADSK, often associated with computer-aided drawing and manufacturing. So a little bit more of a technical company, but certainly interested to hear what you are seeing through your data here on this one.
Yeah, so whenever we're keying into Autodesk, we're listening for mentions of people who are downloading and using their suite of software. So this is, as you mentioned, engineering and design software. They really describe themselves as software for people who make things, which kind of helps me, understand what people are using these tools to do. And so what we see is we actually see purchase intent increasing pretty significantly year over year for Autodesk. So we track multiple brands within Autodesk. We're tracking AutoCAD, we're tracking Revit, we're tracking their 3ds Max and Fusion 360, and we see really significant improvements year over year across all of these brands. And you can see that the current pace for people talking about using and downloading Autodesk products it's up 30% year over year. So this is kind of a nice trajectory, and we love to see that green purchase intent line with such a strong correlation, as you can see on that chart.
Megan, this is another one of those stocks or companies that it looks like the new economy that we live in is moving towards, not away from. And you can tell that by the sell-off and then the snap back in this name. And it's just a few dollars off of its all-time highs. So what you're seeing must be true in this name is what they're doing. What is it that this company does other than what you just described is making this company so incredibly popular right now?
I think one really interesting thing that the company's done in the last few years is they've transitioned to a subscription-based model versus, just a simply like you buy the software type of deal. It almost reminds me of how Adobe did this a couple of years ago. And in the last fiscal quarter, I believe their recurring revenue from subscriptions was up something like 41% year over year. So it's really positive that, they're able to, shift to this model of recurring revenue, of this subscription service, and the fact that they're able to retain these loyal customers. When we look at happiness, we see consumer happiness above 81% positive. And that's really high for a service-based model. So this is something that obviously consumers are using this, and they're continuing to use this and continuing to subscribe to the software.
Yeah, Megan, I'm glad you bring that up because I think this transition that we've seen across the industry in terms of some of these software products moving from more of a product-driven model to a service-driven model of, as we've seen companies like Adobe, of course, Autodesk do over the past few years, and the success that they've seen being able to, gain visibility into the revenue and create those more recurring, consistent revenue streams for these companies. When I look at these charts, though, obviously a little bit of a leg up here over the last few months, but this is one that looks like it's been able to grow pretty organically and pretty consistently for years now. When you look at a company's performance like Autodesk right now versus maybe something like Zoom, which clearly has gained a lot of traction in this environment, do you look at something like Autodesk and say, hey, this is a company that was executing, continues to execute, and regardless of what's going on, has been strong and continues to be strong? Or is this one that's also gained from more and more people working from home?
It's interesting. They do have, their model is digital. So obviously remote work isn't anything that's hurting this company. If anything, there's no barrier to entry to using this suite of software. And what we see is, that consistent strength, like you mentioned, and they actually did a program where they're allowing some clients to use their software for free during a bit of this downturn. And I think really, while that might be a little bit of short-term pain for them, obviously that's not capturing revenue, but long-term that's building a loyal customer, and that's increasing a client's reliance on the suite of software, maybe exposing them to different elements that they weren't using before. And so I think that, we are seeing a little bit of an uptick from that, but it's nice to see that consistent, sustained strength and that continual growth, especially with this subscription-based model. You can see here, this is just buzz for Autodesk, and I really like it because I think it shows the correlation. And for the quarter that they're about to report, that 21 Q1, it's pretty flat, but you can see that uptick into the current year. So they're continuing this trajectory. People are talking about them, even though this is like an engineering and construction based software system. There are still tons of mentions about their suite of products, and consumer happiness is extremely high.
Kevin, Megan mentions some of the kind of strategy they've used to maybe target new potential customers throughout this by offering some free access to some of their software. We've seen this used by so many different companies, not only throughout this crisis, but in other periods of time, using kind of these free trials or teaser rates to get people hooked on the service and then continue using it even once that's that initial rate does go up. Obviously, any type of mention then, to Megan's point on that last chart that we had up, more people talking about this is gonna help them as well if they can convert some of those free trial users to recurring revenue as well in the future.
Matching need of their potential consumers to easy access to their products. You're seeing it really all across this economy, right? Autos. I mean, auto sales are spiking because they're giving up to 84 months interest-free financing. So a lot of companies, you're right, Alex, have really gone to next 3 months free. Then we start charging you. You get people familiar with your product. It's a really good way to grow business in a tricky economy like we find ourselves. So yeah, it works. It's proven to work, and it looks like it's working for Autodesk right now, Alex.
Megan, as we wrap this up here, this is one that, I look at it and I say, hey, I see your data and it looks strong from how you've described it and what those charts look like. And then I look at the chart of Autodesk and I say, hey, this has been a company that's been pretty resilient. It's bounced back and it's mostly all the way back. But my question for you is there still a divergence here where you're seeing growth, yet this stock isn't at its all-time high in terms of its stock price?
Yeah, it's made up a lot of ground recently, but this is one that, because we see such extreme strength, that almost reminds me of an NVIDIA, how we talked about last week. The market has high expectations, but so far in our consumer demand data and our buzz and our happiness, all of these metrics that we're tracking, the company seems to be making the right moves, and it's continuing to grow its base. So this is something that we want to see. Going into earnings, it still is off of all-time highs. We're starting to, we lean a little bit bullish, but really we really like this name long term.
Yeah, and so Megan, last question then is you set that up here. When you're talking about this space, which is a little bit more technical, and you described it as how they describe themselves as a design company for people who make things, are they the main player in this space? Is there a company like Adobe or something that's also in here, or is Autodesk really the main player?
From our coverage universe, we see I think Autodesk is the main player that we're looking at. I think that Adobe and Autodesk are similar in their subscription model, and I think that Adobe may have been a little bit ahead of the game in transitioning to that subscription model. So actually, we're just starting to see Autodesk kind of play catch up and start reaping the rewards of said subscription model. So I think that that's really promising for Autodesk long term, especially as every brand that we look at, we see almost double-digit purchase intent demand growth, and so that's something that I think is really positive for them. And the fact that their happiness is above 80% positive is so high, it shows that they're able to keep their consumers happy.